Hello and welcome to my unboxing and first impressions of the new iPhone 15 Pro. Now, I didn't end up going for the Pro Max and we'll talk about that later on, but first of all I just wanted to get into actually unboxing the phone and seeing what it's like. Obviously it's not going to be too different from any of the previous ones, but it's always nice to get some nice little bit of ASMR from the unboxing. Okay. Let's pop the box to one side. This year I ended up going for the Space Black version. Can't wait to actually see what it's like in terms of its overall appearance and everything. Because hopefully every single year I think everyone wishes that they were a little bit darker. In fact, for me, I ended up going for the purple version last year. So this is going to be the first time in a while that I've actually had a space grey iPhone. The last one that I had that was space grey was the iPhone 6s. So it's been quite a while, so yeah, it'll be definitely very interesting, and I can't wait to test out different features on that action button as well. I feel like every year the unboxing experience gets slightly less satisfying, I don't know why, but there you go. It's definitely darker, it's definitely a much darker space grey than what the old 6S used to be anyway. I don't believe it's much darker than the previous model. But yeah, it's definitely darker in general. You can also immediately feel that difference in terms of how the titanium rails feel on the side versus the aluminium rails as well. Very, very interesting. But let's just get the basic peel off. There you go. So yeah, this year I ended up going for a smaller version. This one here is my older iPhone, so you can get an idea of comparison of size. I ended up going for the 6.1 inch display instead of the 6.8 or 6.7 inch. I want to downgrade the size purely because, I don't know really, it's kind of just, I'm feeling more of a mood recently of just kind of having the smaller size because I know that generally speaking I'm going to be using a powerhouse anyway. There's no need to spend that extra bit of money on something when, you know, I don't necessarily need it right now. Obviously, you can argue the case of why am I upgrading to this phone in comparison to, let's say, the iPhone 14 Pro Max that I've got currently. The main reason is content overall, but yeah, that's pretty much why. One thing that I am noticing heavily in comparison, I don't know if it's just me, I'll be interested to see what people say. I was already aware that there was going to be the fingerprints appearing on the side, which I wasn't too surprised about, but on the back, just my fingers going on the back slightly, I'm very surprised at how much the fingerprints actually stay on there. But no, yeah, it's noticeably lighter, guaranteed. It's something that I'm definitely on the fence with. I personally was always a big fan of the iPhones becoming a slight bit heavier than your average phone. But yeah, here's just a general quick look. But yeah, pretty much the reason why I always preferred the bit heavier choice is solely because, in my mind, it kind of felt more premium. For example, I used to work in a retail setting where we would sell phones, we'd sell tech and that sort of thing. And the phones that I always class as cheap are the ones that are ridiculously light. And that's not because they are light. It is solely that they are light phones because they do not have amazing stuff built in the inside of it to make them heavier. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this fares up. It's a lot lighter, like very noticeably so in comparison to the Pro Max version. Not a surprise, because obviously the Pro Max is a lot bigger. For anyone who is interested as well, I'm wearing the Apple Watch Series 5 right now. I've upgraded to the Series 9 that recently got announced. That will be arriving at some point over the next week, so in a week's time you'll see an unboxing and first impressions as well of that. Now, yeah, one thing that is very noticeable straight away is you can kind of see on there that I already have so much just little bits of dust and I guess just dirt on the phone just from putting it down on here. This is just a bit of card that I've bought for these unboxing videos, kind of increase the experience a little bit more. But yeah, I've got to say, I'm a big fan of this color. It's a very nice darker finish. It's kind of the reasons why I stepped away from space grey, especially on my MacBook Pro. I went back to a silver when I first got it, purely because I felt like it just looked a lot nicer, and the space grey was getting to a point where it was just like too grey, and I'd rather go down the black route or white route. And yeah, it was the case that I went for the white on there, and then this one here is genuinely very close to black. It's very nice. But yeah, another thing that is noticeable as well, and I've seen videos talking about this, which is this phone is nowhere near as harsh on the edges as the previous models. So if I take the casing off of my old one, so on the old phone, for example, the edges are very, very, like, you could physically feel them. It is a 90-degree angle instantly the moment that edge turns. Whereas this, there is a slight difference. It's not as 90-degree. It is definitely a slight curve over the top. I'm not sure how noticeable it is on camera, but yeah, it is the case that it is ever so slightly more rounded. And I'll be interested to see, because I personally do kind of like the more rounded edge. I think the changeover that they did for this phone was definitely warranted, where they chose to change it over. Well, let's get the peel-off experience for the old phone. But yeah, the edges were obviously a welcomed thing, because it felt like the phone was more newer, more premium, even though it was just an older design, refreshed, basically. But yeah, this time around, definitely a lot smoother. You could tell a lot more on the back as well, that it's a very smooth in comparison as well. Now, we'll get to turning on the phone, and I thought I'd just discuss kind of the downsized choice. Now, personally, I chose to do this because this is going to be my personal phone, whereas my old phone, not this one, but an iPhone 13 Pro Max, which currently my girlfriend has, she's going to be upgrading to the 14 Pro Max that I've got. And then that way I have two phones. One's going to be for work-related stuff, so all things to do with the channels that I have, so Exiled and this one. And basically just meaning that I end up having that disconnect a little bit. And I didn't really see the point in getting the bigger phone, especially considering it was £200 more expensive, and the only proper bonus that you got with it was a little bit better battery life, and on top of that, a camera that's a bit bigger, well, a little bit more of a zoom. I'll be interested to know, once people rip these open, if that was actually something that could have been, you know, given to the smaller model as well. But we'll find out eventually. But yeah, the titanium rails are definitely something that you can really feel. Now, on here, like, you can see the, you can just see the fingerprints getting even more, just appearing more and more. But yeah, you could definitely feel the difference, because this feels very smooth, a lot smoother than this. This is smooth, but in a cold metal. Like, the stainless steel is very blatant with this, whereas this, it just feels, I guess, the best way of putting it is more finished and refined. That's the best way of putting it. I think that overall, this is a very solid build, from obviously the change to titanium instead of stainless steel on the sides. And overall, I think the curve changes are actually something that's, it's very small. A lot of people will think, well, it's just not important. For anyone who's used, for example, this phone here, without a case on, which I've been doing for about the last like 3 days of having this phone. I've been using a case outside of that. You can really feel the edges, especially when it's like delving into your hands like this. Whereas this one, it's a lot softer to touch. It's definitely a lot more easy to use in terms of not feeling as if the edges are just denting into the side of your hand, or when you're calling someone, them being right in the edge of your ear. So yep, obviously this year they also mentioned that we've got this action button, something that I'm definitely going to be using and I'm going to be messing around with. I intend to make a video at some point in the future, making an iPhone into an Android. I think it'd be a cool little idea to make and see how it would go. Just trial out for a month and see how it is. But yeah, it's definitely something that I'm going to mess around with. I saw Marquez's video, and yeah, he's changed it to be a Google Assistant, which is pretty funny. I think I might do the same just to see how it is, and especially once I do the Android version of the iPhone, it will definitely be interesting. Now, one thing that I can't tell if it is me, let me just double check. Is the notch slightly smaller? I think, no, it doesn't really look like it. I know that the bezels are apparently smaller, and it's definitely something that you can kind of see on here. Like, for example, if we just line them up side by side, you can kind of see it there. They are definitely ever so slightly. It's not necessarily, in my opinion, overly noticeable. I think you can notice it more along this top lining than you can on this one here. This one here is obviously a little bit less noticeable, whereas this one, it's a lot bigger. You can blatantly see the top of the phone, whereas this kind of blends into curving around the edge. I do like it. I think it's definitely a good refresh design. Well, not a refresh, just a overall better change to the design that I am pretty happy with. In terms of what we get in the box, you end up getting, obviously, the basic Apple stuff. So you get the stickers in the back, you get the little bits that, if you're outside of the US anyway, you get the little bits that you can pop your SIM card in, because I know that the US models do not have a SIM card tray. I think the rest of the world will follow suit eventually. I honestly am not anti a eSIM in any way. I don't think there's any reason to be necessarily too anti them. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. And then the thing that I think a lot of people are kind of excited about is just having this little braided cable. USB-C to USB-C, obviously, as one of the big features of changing over to this. I will be interested to see if there's much utility to it, I'll be honest. We get USB 3 transfer speeds, which obviously isn't necessarily that big of a deal. Android have had it for years, but on top of that, it isn't like we've actually got an increase of, let's say, charging speed, which is a bit disappointing. But yeah, the braided cable just means that it'll pretty much last a bit longer. It means that the breaking along, you know, the edging here, where you end up typically finding a lot of damage on it, won't happen as easily. It also means that it's less likely to, you know, coil up and end up really annoying and hard to unloosen once it's all tangled up. But that there is everything when it comes to the unboxing experience of this phone. My first impressions of it are basically just that the design is surprisingly better than I was expecting. I honestly wasn't expecting to care too much, but the actual change to go instead to have the, you know, smoother edges on the side, going for a smaller phone for myself, I kind of like it. It's feeling a lot better in the hand to use. I think it will definitely be interesting using this for the first week, seeing how things go. And if you are interested in that video where I make this phone into more of an Android, then make sure to let me know, as I am definitely up for doing it. Next week, I will be unboxing the Series 9, giving you my first impressions on that. Probably do a little bit of the startup and overall things like that. In a couple of weeks, you're also going to see the overall first impressions. So this is just the unboxing, obviously, and quick first impressions based off the build quality, everything like that. However, the big one is obviously, does this really change much? How much of a game changer is this going to be to my everyday life in comparison to the 14 Pro? And then on top of that, is it worth buying, or should you opt for a different model? And with that being said, if you did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like on this video. Helps out when it comes to pushing it into the algorithm. And then on top of that, if you want to see more tech content, I upload twice a week on this channel. So if you are interested, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you on Wednesday for the next video, which should be my unboxing of the Apple Watch. But if not, I'll be talking about the best student laptop. But on top of that, if you want to follow me on any other socials, I have an Instagram now. So if you want to check that out, it'll be linked down below. Or you can just search Adams_tech_. Sadly, I couldn't get Adams Tech, understandably, because it's been probably taken a very long time ago. But yeah, overall, if you are interested in anything like that, you want to see cool photos, if you want to see any of the shorts on Instagram instead, then you can always check them out over there, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.